You are now tuned in to the Cosmic Convos podcast, your number one source for accurate, relevant, and thought-provoking astrological conversations in the podcast nation. The place where stars and minds align.
Peace, you're now tuned into the Cosmic Convos podcast. I'm your humble host, Herut, and we got the good brother here, Brother Ra. How you doing?
Oh, brother, never better, never better. How about yourself, King?
Doing pretty good, just glad, to have opportunity, to, make these strides and, build these businesses and, be able to learn and stuff like that and, see my daughter grow and everything like that. So I ain't got no complaints. What about yourself?
Oh, man, I'm loving it, brother. Classes are filling up quickly. The class we're on now is on class 7, so it's really doing well. The students are picking up the knowledge quickly. It's just a beautiful thing, man. So I can't complain either, man. Not at all.
Indeed. But before we get too far, I want to remind you all that this episode is brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group and Caliprucia Astrology and our good people over there on Patreon. Big shout out to our patrons out there. And this week, the patrons to get, we're trialing something out right now, testing it out, with some video stuff. So all the Patreons on there, we'll get this episode in video format as well. So if you want to see that, definitely, hit up the Patreon and, get to see the new stuff that we're trialing out. All right. But for Push It Forward Media Group, you can find us at Push It Forward on Instagram. That's PUSHITFWD. And you can also get us on the web at pushitforward.com and whatnot. That's spelled just like the Instagram handle. You can get in contact with us there. And brother, how can the people get in touch with you?
Same. Caliprucia Astrology at gmail.com. You can hit me up on Facebook via Shechem Ra, or you can find me on Instagram via Shechem Ra as well. So either one of those would definitely tap my shoulder.
Indeed. And you know what? Also speaking of pushitforward.com, we've also launched a new service as well. Just basically printing natal charts. So you can purchase that on pushitforward.com /Cosmic Convos podcast. We'll have that link in the Instagram, on our Instagram at Cosmic Convo. And, we're running a little promo right now, so you can go and get it for a good price right now. You know what I'm saying? Just make sure that you got accurate data, and you should be good to go. A lot of people have been asking about that, so we finally got that put up there. So yeah, go ahead and do the chart service or whatnot. Indeed.
Take advantage.
So absolutely. So we got a lot of new stuff going on right now. So we're looking and trying to see where we could take the podcast. I mean, it looks like we're going to be quarantined again sometime soon. Right? So it's always an excellent time to expand your knowledge, and get some good brain food. So I can imagine that the podcast would definitely get a lot of action when we get fully shut down again in the near future, if you ask me. Whatnot? What you think, Brother Rob?
Yeah, we talked about this earlier, and it's already kind of been foretold, but we're gonna have some downtime, definitely.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say shout out to all the brothers and sisters on the inside, right? All the brothers on the inside, I want to give a shout out.
Oh yeah,
In Pennsylvania, I think Alabama,
DC.
DC.
Yeah,
Our brother stayed on. It's on the inside. It's a perfect world because you have all access to knowledge and you can study and build yourselves up on the end when you come out. So when you come out, you definitely can be a avid student of astrology and use that knowledge to navigate, right? So that you can better your lives. So again, shout out to the brothers and sisters on the inside that's definitely listening to the podcast.
absolutely, man. Absolutely, man. That's a
They having podcast parties.
that's what's up, man. That's real good to hear. Real good to hear, man. I'm always amazed at, like, I was teaching a class not too long ago, and seeing seeing brothers and inside in the class. This whole digital era, man, is kind of made a lot of things possible. Indeed, man.
Hey, don't stop till the cabs dry, man.
Absolutely.
Sure, yeah, the
Absolutely.
brothers in New York, Philly, ATL, SC, DC, South Carolina, DC, all y'all behind the wall, loving it. Keep up the listening and spread the word like y'all been doing. We sure appreciate it, fam. So again, shout out.
Absolutely. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and start moving in today's topic because I don't have any questions. You get any questions shot your way, brother?
Not really. No, we didn't get any questions, which is a little different, but hey, I'm sure we'll have quite a few after this one.
Oh yeah, it's relevant, very relevant. It's kind of like, right now where we see, all the different, protests that's been taking place and different things like that. And, definitely rest in power, George Floyd, rest in power, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and all the other, brothers and sisters that's been, taking off this plane, due to, police brutality and stuff like that. But, what's the situation has brought about is, a lot of people are really starting to, look into, kind of, white supremacy and just white people in general and how they function and how they set up systems and different things like that. And, we kind of wanted to give a kind of astro-historical, perspective, on the matter, with today's topics. And, to be honest with you, these shows are always my favorite. You know what I mean? When we go through the ages, those always are my favorite,
Mine too, man.
topics to touch.
Mine too. Yeah.
Man, because it's interesting, man. It's like...
It is. And, it's almost to the point where, the way the ages unfold, just like the way the things unfold in... as far as the time is concerned, right now, it's just the same. I mean, it's undeniable. You can't argue it. It's like history is, what do they say? Best rewards your research, right? I think Malcolm X quoted that. It was once made that statement when you
something like that, yeah,
something to that effect, right? Well, history is always going to reveal that there is a cosmic connection between all events, whether it be gross on a large scale or macrocosmic on a large scale or microcosmic on a small scale. It's the same pattern, just expanded or contracted. So it's always going to work. It's always going to apply. It's always going to yield some level of understanding because these are universal truths that we're dealing with here.
Indeed. So, today, we're going to talk about the Age of Aries, the rise of the Aryan man, and all other things involved or whatnot. I guess first thing we could do is, what's the ballpark area that you're looking at as far as like when the actual Age of Aries come into play? I know we was just talking about it, but let's give people a kind of a range that we're looking at.
Well, each age lasts about 2,160 years. Rounded up, it's really 2,155, but 2,160, right, makes a nice round number, which is you can multiply it and gain an understanding about the great year, multiply it times 12. But each age is about 2,160 years, give or take. And so, you notice, and here's the strange thing about it, in history, there's only one culture, one civilization that really kind of showed or emulated and reflected what was in the heavens in regards to how they managed and governed their civilization, and that civilization, that group of people is called the Cometians or Kemet, or some people say the Remech, right? Depending on who's speaking, but they are the only civilization that inculcated astrology into the basic fabric of their civilization and culture. And we know this because, in fact, there's a couple of books out there you can research, great reads for y'all to kind of add to your library, one of which is called Sacred Science by Swaller de Lubitsch, right? Excellent book. He's kind of like the kind of metaphysical Egyptologist, if you will, right? Some of his background training is alchemy, and he's a Rosicrucian as well. So his approach to Kemet is not the typical Egyptologist approach. He has a very metaphysical perception or purview. And so in the Sacred Science, he goes through and explains a great deal of the ages, and the ages always show some type of change or destabilization when the ages fold over. So from the Geminian age to the Taurian age, that's when Narmer, right, appeared at that particular junction between around 4200, between 4400 to 4200 BC. That's the beginning of the Taurian age. And so 2,000 years ensue, and that's when the building of the pyramids ensued, right? The Taurian age was all about creating heaven on earth, right?
Yeah.
So the age of the Aryan, or the age of Aries, begins with an influx or a destabilization period in Kemet between the 8th and the 10th dynasties, probably. Yeah, really the 8th and 10th dynasties. The 8th dynasty is a very small known, minuscule, I don't even think you want to call it a dynasty. And then the 9th is very similar. The 10th is a resurgence, and then the 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th are considered the Middle Kingdom. So during this period of time, however, our epithets, our titles, reflected the age that we were in. So Montu was the great bull. Muntu, Mentu, Min, the great bull, right? The bull was the actual epithet, the title that many of the Nasuts or the Shechems held to show their kind of connection, their cosmic connection to the age that be. So we as a people always inculcated astrology into how we governed ourselves. Not only that, and that just goes to show that, and again, we did it, we mentioned it previously, that the temples were aligned to the star systems. No other civilization has done that. None.
No.
Right. And so, being said, I just kind of want to read a little something to the people, like, that gives me some understanding about why kind of people would say what they say. And racism is so deep, it's so profound, it's so intrinsic in the society and the educational process and the information that you provide to us as people, that they even try to whitewash, right, history. And we're going to talk about that here in just a second when we get deep into the Age of Aries. But one of the things they try to do is to remove the sciences start in antiquity in Kemet, meaning that they don't want to really admit Kemet is kind of like the foundation. They did for a while, then they kind of said, well, no, that's not it. It's the Sumerians and the Chaldeans. Well, this is out of a book called The Cultural Unity of Black Africa by Sheikh Anta Diop. It's the domains of matriarchy and patriarchy, the domains of matriarchy and of patriarchy in classical antiquity. But a quote on here in page 100 says that the origin of the Chaldeans is no more certain than that of the Sumerians, although the first are more readily considered to be Semites. According to Diodorus Siculus, the first human grouping to which Chaldea owes its name was a caste of Egyptian priests who had immigrated and who had settling on the upper Euphrates continued to practice and teach astrology according to the principles transmitted by their mother caste. Right. So that just shows, right, that the people that the Sumerians, the Chaldeans, those people are the ones that came out of Kemet. Right, they came out of Egypt and went up and took the knowledge of astrology up into that area, not the other way around. And so, I say that to say that history, right, the knowledge that we have, they skew it so that and they know who you are. They know that was your civilization. They use these terms and use these tricks and tricks of the trade to kind of circumnavigate. So you really don't think, oh, well, we really didn't found the science of astrology. I mean, there's all kinds of papers that really argue both sides, but we can substantiate that our priests did not divulge knowledge to those of the profane. So obviously we wouldn't be telling any and everybody that, yeah, this is how you do astrology, right? Just work out that way. Yeah. But knowing that, right? Knowing that history can be obscured and lies can be told to kind of change the narrative. This is the essence of this mindset, right? Is really dictated and understood in a book called Yurugu by Marimba Ani. And they talk about the seed of a culture, the seed of a people, right? And it's called the Asili. It's the core of who you are. And the core of who we're dealing with here, right, called the Indo-European, right, or the / Indo-Aryan. And there has been a lot of conjecture about the word Aryan and what it truly means. And it does actually mean Arya, which means to be noble or nobleman. But this was adopted and stolen by the Indo-Europeans as they made their way down the Caucasian steppes into the lands that were surrounding. So there were some people that were Aryans prior to, but they took that culture and adapted that name to themselves and have been doing so for probably the last 4,000 years. Yeah. So getting deeper into it, the Age of Aries begins right around between 2200 to about 2000 BCE. Remember, it takes 72 years for 1 degree to change, right, in the heavens. So every 72 years is 1 degree. We can say circa, right, or right around between 2200 to 2000, right. I would lean towards in the middle, right, being the real date, because again, we're talking declination. And in declination, it's right around 2200 that we see that shift. Remember, these are stars, so there's no deadline. There's no real demarcation, right? But there is a way to say that, okay, in declination, right around between 2200 and 2000, that change and shift happened, right? And so what happens is we find that our ancestors made note of certain things that we can go back and verify that we were actually following this as a means to kind of inculcate these things into our civilization. Well, in the 12th dynasty, right, the Cometians have the earliest known military campaign in the Levant, right, going back to show support that the people that were originally from Sumeria, the Sumerians were from Kemet, who were migrating up into that area for many hundreds, if not thousands of years. So knowing that, right, the earliest known military campaign in Levant is in the 12th dynasty. Now, mind you, the 12th dynasty begins in 1991 before Common Era. So right around 2000. Yeah. And isn't it interesting that the first term or the first time that Amen is used in the titles of the kings as Amenemhet, which is the first king of the first Nasut or Shechem of the 12th dynasty. That's the first time Amen has been used in the title. Now, why would I say that? Well, Amen, right? Or Amun. Some people say Amun, some people say Amen, some people say Amin. It just depends on how you perceive it, right? But Amen, right, is represented by the ram in Kemet, right? And so the ram, right, denoting that Aryan energy, right? Amen. And people say, well, why would Amen be associated with the ram? That's a whole spiritual understanding behind it. We won't get too deep into that, but just understand that when our ancestors begin to see the change of the clock happen cosmically, that large hand change, they changed the names of the kings to make sure that they match the vibration as above, so below. And they did that for 2,000 years. Right? Some of the kings had different names, yes, but Amenhotep, Amenhotep II, Amenhotep III, Amenhotep IV. This is all during the time period when the Age of Aries, or the Age of the Ram, was in play. Now, that's Kemet telling us that, this is what's happening at the time. This is the age that we're in. The names would show you the age. The symbols that we use, we changed from the bull to the ram. Rams refined all the way up down Luxor, right? Or Karnak, right? So you can go back and see, like, this is what we used at that time when that energy was in vogue. Now, Amen, right, means the hidden, but it also alludes to that which is unseen, or that which is unknowable, or that which is unknown, the aspect that is the prime motivator behind all things, but can never be seen. Right, but the energy also requires for you to have an innate amount of peace, right, in order to handle that fiery energy. In fact, correlating it to other things, that particular aspect or part of the spirit is a ring pass knot or cut off between the lower and the higher nature. So that means that particular energy zone, that energy zone we call Aries, has to demarcate certain things that will require for you to have an innate amount of peace in order to handle the onslaught of that forceful energy that is embodied in a symbol called a ram.
Yeah.
Right. Now, getting deeper into it, right? Aries, right, which is the age we're discussing, is the god of war in Greek mythology. Right. In astrology, Aries is ruled by the red planet, the planet of iron, right? And it literally is a planet of iron. The red color is not just because the dirt is red. The red color is because the dirt contains iron oxide, which actually is a metal that's akin to Mars. Right?
Yeah, I got the same thing in Georgia, in the South. The soil was very, very iron rich.
Exactly.
That's why it's red. So we got the red clay.
Right. So your blood is made of iron.
Yep.
Right? And that denotes, that red color denotes that heat that, in fact, Aries is known as the sign that has a fire burning constantly within. Right. And, isn't it strange that the Indo-European, his main theme, his main epithet of the divine was the sacred fire that never went out? Strange, right?
Yeah.
Right? Aries being the fire within, the fire burning within, right? It's the energy of desperation. Most people don't know that, right? Aries is the energy of desperation. Can be. Right? It's aggressive. It's it likes to conquer, right? It wants to win at all costs. It wants to be first, right? It wants to produce, to overthrow, right? To dominate, right? And so this is what we were witnessing when the onslaughts of the Indo-Europeans began to come out of the caves and hills of Western Eurasia. And so when this happens, right? And, I'm not here to bash anybody, but this is the truth. I mean, I have to say the truth, call it what it is. There's only one man that we know turns red, right? He turns literally bright red, right?
Yeah.
Blood comes to the surface of his skin and shows, right, his true nature. And so that nature was birthed in the caves and hills of a cold region called the Caucasus Mountains. And in
Yeah.
that particular environment, in that embryonic state that they were in, they learned to develop the need for survival.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that in order to survive, you have to literally, right, you have to take there's no
You eat what you kill.
yeah, kill or be killed.
Yeah.
And so understanding this energy is now being released upon the planet. Right. Before, we have an energy of peace, calmness, the placidness of Taurus, the peacefulness of the bull, right? The nurturing of the cow, right? That is the energy that we had. And this, all of a sudden, on the scene, where did this come from? Energy manifest right around 2000 BCE. So here's the strange thing. Now, Kemet, right? We held our own for a while, right? We didn't really fall asunder to the waves and onslaughts of the Indo-European. We did have some run-ins with some individuals called the Hyksos, right, or the Shepherd Kings, or the Hyksos, right, and they were called the low wandering Asiatic, right?
You know, the interesting, I don't know if I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but the interesting thing about just that whole time period is you know, one of the key characters out there during that time period, one of the key queen mothers, Amesh Nefertari. You know,
Amos said Nefertari, yeah. Amos said that's the ones that removed the Hyksos, right?
Yep.
16th,
You know,
17th dynasty took heads, right? During the age of what? Aries. Right. And then right after, what was the name of the titles of the kings right after it? Amen. They started using Amen. Like,
yeah.
right? That was a big thing.
Because she reestablished that priesthood, the Amen priesthood.
The Amen priesthood, right?
Yep.
Which was the most powerful priesthood in Kemet, right?
Yep.
So, understanding this, right? You know, Kemet, like I said, we held our own. We had a few incursions. You know, we had like some bleeps on the radar screen before we had our heyday go away, right? But nonetheless, right? And the age of Aries is when we fall, right? It's not during the age of Pisces. We were already conquered at that point. Right? We were already in bondage, and the age of Pisces we discuss is the age of bondage, right?
Yeah.
Right, but the people that carry the baton, the race, and here's the thing, they call it a race. Well, where are the demarcations in the race? You know, when you have a race, you have demarcations. You have a first leg, a second leg, a third leg, right? And then the final leg, right? So someone's running a race. Someone knows that they're in a race and that time is a factor.
Yeah.
Why would you call it a race?
Yeah.
Right? And where are we racing to? And what is the end goal? What is the end game? The end game is he who has the baton when it switches has the rulership for the next 2,160 years.
Yep. Yep.
See, we knew how to play the long game, because we ruled for a whole couple of ages, right?
Yeah.
So we knew about that. That's why we had dynasties, because that's the race, right? Passing on the baton to make sure that you can stay the race, right? So, and no racial issue came about until the age of Aries. Somebody knows something you don't know about yourself, but they know about you.
Yeah.
Right, but back to good old Aries, right? So, right, it's the energy literally that causes us to leap forward and spring out without any forethought or consideration. And that's exactly what the Indo-Europeans did. Now, Indo-Europeans didn't only just tap our shoulder. In fact, they tapped the rest of the world's shoulder at the same time.
Yeah.
Now, give or take, right? This is something that is a new thing in the world, right? we had battles and we had wars, but not on this scale. Not on this.
Not pure like imperial, drives.
Inter skirmishes.
Yeah. But I'm talking about here, you got the rise of people wanting to dominate, lands that that they don't have any connection to.
Right. I mean, none whatsoever. So taking that into consideration, right? We can go to India, right?
Yeah.
And India is where the fingerprints are, right? That's where we could find the murder weapons, right? Right? Because they leave a trail, right, and a trace. And India, right, is an amalgamation of cultures.
Yeah.
Right. It's two simultaneous cultures. The book I read earlier, Cultural Unity of Black Africa, in that book they talk about the cradle theory, right? And there's two cradles, the northern cradle and the southern cradle. Now, the southern cradle, right, does extend into India, right, the Indus Valley. All of those individuals before the onslaught of the Indo-European or the Aryan race are dark. I mean, purely black people. They're of the Australoid. I believe they're more of the Australoid type. And the Australoid type is intermixed with the Africoid type. They're still both black. Right? When you hear Australoid, these are the Aborigines I'm talking about. But the Aborigines have a whole Dreamtime culture. They have a whole they have a mystical order. They have an initiation system too.
Yeah.
Just don't know about it. Like, and isn't it odd? They were fine until someone came knocking on their door in the 1800s. In fact, most people don't know that Australia was founded by the criminals that were exorcised out of Europe, out of England. That's why the flag of Australia has the English flag in the corner.
Yeah, they did a lot of that here too, especially in Georgia. A lot of the people that they brought to Georgia initially were cons. People that were in prison and stuff like that. Exactly. They released them all here.
Yeah. Right. So you see, I mean, and this is the culture that this is the Aryan culture. We're still under an Aryan culture, right?
Yeah.
You just can't see it per se, right? But in India,
I see an illusion.
Oh yeah, smoking mirrors, right?
Yeah,
this is still all Aryan, trust me, right? But nonetheless, right, in India is the telltale sign. This is where we can go back and say, okay, we see the evidence. There is a book called the Mahabharata. You know what the Mahabharata translated in? The actual translation of the word is? The Great War.
Great, yeah.
Now, come on. I didn't say a little war. This is something big, right? It's something we've never dealt with before, right? And so the Mahabharata is written, and in the Mahabharata are smaller stories. The Bhagavad Gita, another story about Arjuna, who is a black man, Krishna, who is a black man, fighting off these onslaughts of Europeans coming in. It's in the Bhagavad Gita. It's in the Ramayana. Right? It's in the Ramayana. In fact, in the Ramayana, right, there's something that's stated in it, right? And let's see what it says, right? It says, Ram saw his mission and the great destiny of his race. From that moment, he no longer hesitated. Instead of igniting the spark of war among the peoples of Europe, he decided to take the best of his race into Asia. Ram, striving after the divine science, had traveled into the southern countries where the priest of the black men had revealed part of their secret knowledge to him. Upon returning to the northern country, he began to impart the knowledge of the sacred fire to his race in hopes of putting an end to the cult of human sacrifice, which was increasing among his people, for he saw in this the ruin of his race. Lighted fires kept burning for several months on the mountains were the signal for the mass migration of all who would follow. The tremendous migration directed by the great shepherd of peoples slowly started to move, departing in the direction of Central Asia towards the Caucasus Mountains, where there existed several Cyclopean strongholds of the black men which had to be captured. I'll stop there. Right, that's out the Ramayana, written 1500 before Christ, before Common Era. Right. That says right there what happened. There's no gray area. We don't have to wonder. We don't really have to. At that point, we can pretty much surmise. Okay, yeah, this is kind of what went down in 1500 before Common Era. Now, again, 1500 is 400 to 500 years after the Age of Aries begins, so they're in full motion. This thing is taking off. Right?
Yeah.
Right. Now, what are the telltale signs? Like, what do we kind of look for as markers for this thing here? And the Aryan traits are this. Number one, they're a warlike culture.
Yeah.
Right. You look back in history, prior to, very little war. Right. But when this particular man hits the scene, war begins. I'm talking about massive wars. Right. Number two, he segregates by color and caste. Right. Automatic. He comes in because he understands that by breaking you down, he can control you easier. Right. So segregation by color, by caste. They have a Varna system. A Varna system, literally Varna means color in India. This was not present before the Indo-European.
Yeah.
So again, right, showing the telltale signs, right, of the red man. Really, he is the red man. I don't say the Native American's not red, right? He's kind of brownish red, but the one that's red, I'm talking about just red. You slap him, he's red. The red man, right?
You might even be able to call him yellow.
He turns all of them.
Oh, well, I'm talking about the Native American.
Oh, right. Yeah, right, more or less, right. Yeah. But the other telltale sign is that he subjugates his women.
Yep.
Right. These are telltale signs of the Aryan Indo-European paradigm, right? Another telltale sign is he has a lack of respect for nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
He just doesn't care about the planet, wherever he is. What do you mean? Like, well, think about it this. Why do you think? There's two reasons why, well, really more, three primary reasons why fire was so important to these people. Number one, of course, it keeps you warm in the cold, right? Obviously. Two, right? Allows you to cook your food, which is something that they really kind of got wind of when they got hold of that sacred fire. We can cook food.
Mm-hmm.
The third thing it does is it burns the dead bodies.
Yeah.
It's almost like another telltale sign is they don't bury their dead. They burn them. Right? So you're wondering, all you folks are running out there to cremation and yeah, that's a Indo-European tradition. We bury our dead.
Yeah.
Right? Another telltale sign is the battle axe, weaponry. Right? They are adept at creating. In fact, battle axe culture literally leans into this particular statement from their particular perception of how they rule and how they operate. They have literally the lust and love of weaponization of things. And this goes back to that Asili that we talked about, mentioned in that wonderful, awesome, voluminous book called Jurugu. Read that book, y'all. Right.
Can you get a spelling on that?
Yeah, Yurugu, Yurugu, by Marimba Ani. Right. The other thing is the telltale sign of the Indo-European culture is the domestication of the horse. Right. That's straight up telltale sign of European culture. Before that, no horses were being ridden like that.
Yeah, we didn't have them. I think we had donkeys.
Yeah.
We didn't have.
A chariot, right, comes from this culture. So understanding these things, right, these are the telltale signs. When you go back into history, for example, we go into the Indus Valley, Mohenjo-daro and Harappan civilizations, right? They were a pastoral people, right? In fact, one of the really interesting things that you should probably try to find if you can is a book called The Most Ancient Aryan Society. It was given to me by a good brother friend of mine named Kemet many years ago. And didn't know what quite had in my hands until really started reading and studying, and it was a mind-blowing read. It's written by a individual called Ramchandra Jain. Now, here's the thing. Anybody that's not European, that's not from the country called Bharata, is really called Bharata, right? That's the proper name, but India from the Indus Valley, right? That's the new name, the name they kind of, or the Sindhas. There's a lot of reasons why they call it India, but nonetheless, right? This man, Ramchandra Jain, is from India. There are individuals that are outside of India that try to counter the Aryan invasion theory. Now, isn't it strange how we have all these different testimonials, books, whole epics about war in the time when we say when the Aryan age begins, right around 22. I mean, in the book, every single date is right around the second millennium BC. Every major change. In fact, let's read a little bit, right? It talks about, it says these cultural periods are dated. This is page 90. These cultural periods are dated right around 2100 BC. Isn't that strange? These gray-ware people are subsequently found further east at Shah Tepe, Tuarn Tep, Namango Tep, and Askabad. The traces of these same folk have been found in Afghanistan and Nadi Ali. The people connected with the Greyware were new and warlike invaders of martial character organized in tribal collectives who violently destroyed the indigenous cultures and civilizations. These collectives tamed sheep and horses, as is evident from numerous bones of sheep and horses found in the Tripoli region. The herds and flocks of cattle were commonly owned. The tribal collectives were presided over by supreme tribal leaders. Chieftains house at Feladesini in Tripoli region, princely tombs at Maikop and Sarkaya in Russia, Turkestan. Tuareg Tep in northern India, Iran, Alaka Hayuk in Asia Minor, and less royal tombs at Hisar III and Shah Tep clearly reveal the collective and martial character of these tribes and their leaders. Their chief weapon of war was the battle axe. Multiplication of weapons was the chief instrument of these patriarchal warlords who constantly waged wars to gain military conquest and political supremacy for the preservation and growth of their tribal collectives. The violent upheavals of cultures in these times, attested by archaeological finds, tell the same and similar story everywhere in these regions. So again, right, showing that the Aryan, right, Indo-European, was responsible for the shifting and change, the shift and change of the whole paradigm that we are still dealing with to this day. Right? Again, right, the culture shows they break things down, right, through separation. What did they do? If you ever read the Willie Lynch letter, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? It's no different. Now, we don't have a quote-unquote caste system because it's an amalgamous race where there's a clear demarcation sign between black and white. But they did create a caste system inside of the American culture. And that's if you ever hear of individuals saying, well, he's a quadroon, octoroon. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they would break these things down. Quad, meaning a fourth. You got a fourth of black blood. Octoroon, you got an eighth of black blood. Because they didn't even talk about half. Because if they said half, you was black. Right? They say a half room. Right? Right. You follow? Right? So
yeah.
they knew it. That black blood hit, boom, you black. But if you got a quarter, well, we can do you quarter. We can call you a quarter room. Right? Or octoroon. right? Because they knew that black blood is still so potent, even a fourth of it in your blood, right, is gonna have some action, take action, right?
Yep. Yeah, they even had those. They had octoroon and quadroon societies where they
Man, come
only
on,
married each other
come
and
on, man. Like this
yeah,
is real, right?
yeah. They did the same thing in India though too. Absolutely.
Well, they
I mean,
got
it wasn't the same name, but they function the same way.
same thing,
Yeah.
right? The Dalits is us, right? The Shudras, right? The Dalits and the Shudras are the bottom class, right? Then you have the Vaishnavas, right, which is the merchant caste, a little lighter, right? And they can do business, but they can't run nothing.
Yeah.
And you have the Kshatriya class, which is a little lighter, right? And those are the priests, kings, soldiers, right? Warriors, and so forth, right? I'm not the kings, soldiers, warriors, and the military, right? Then you have the Brahmins, which is the white caste, right? They're the top, right?
Yeah.
And so they're the priests, the educators, and so forth, right? Now, you could take away the color system, and it would work fine, right? Because all are necessary, and no one would be less important than the other, more important than the other. But when you add color to it and demarcate things based on skin tone, and then not allow that skin tone to utilize and access things that are beneficial to it, then you have this imbalance of culture, and this is what they do naturally. Right? And this is built into their system. It's not personal. People think this is a personal thing, like they're doing this deliberately. This is not something that's done deliberately. This is something done from a very deep-seated fear. Right? In their DNA, in their genetic makeup, is the need for survival. If you understand survival is only saying that I am scared or I am fearful.
Yeah.
They are a xenophobic culture. We are a xenophilic culture. Xenophobic means they are fearful of other people. We are xenophilic, open arms, come in. Hospitality is the name of the game in ancient cultures. If you were hospitable, you were considered divine.
Yeah.
Even in your Bible, they call them the heavenly what? Hosts. Right? So understanding, right, the culture, right, dictates, right now, our culture is the very opposite. We take care of our women, right? They're nomadic. We are sedentary, right? We're settled. We settle areas. We cultivate the land, right? They go from place to place.
Yeah. That's one of the major reasons why they were trying to conquer Egypt is for its agriculture, prowess, because they
Literally a honeypot, right?
and it's deep when you think about it. I think I might even said this in the last one that one of the main crops out of Kemet was wheat, and then now you see Rome. They're known for their pasta and bread products.
What is that? Right out the Nile, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Egypt was their breadbasket, literally. Yeah, literally. And not only a breadbasket, but their basket for everything. See, here's the funny thing. They didn't go to Babylon to learn that much knowledge about astrology. They came to Kemet.
Yeah.
Strange, because you would think you would go to the inventors. I would, right? If I want to know the real deal. But they went to Kemet and they testified. They swear that the Kemetians were the ones that invented the science. Then you have Nuke Bauer coming in and his pseudo crazy racist purviews, right? That say that no, the Babylonians invented it. And right, you can tell I have a thing with that because it's just clearly it's easily seen, right, when you start doing the research. But and Nuke Bauer, he didn't do too much research, except he did enough to actually see the information, but not understand it, right, and not understand the backdrop on where it was coming from. But nonetheless, right, we can speak all day about how the European and this racial mentality has plagued us on so many levels. Just dealing with police brutality, right? that shows that we are still underneath the Aryan rule, right? We're still underneath the Indo-Europeans mindset, because in Africa we didn't need police systems.
That's a lot of people, they can't even think of a reality where you don't need police.
It's hard to conceptualize.
Yeah. Or prisons.
Right. They call it a criminal justice system. Right.
Yeah.
Not a justice system. Right. You would just call it the justice system. It's a criminal justice system because it's criminal intent. You label something properly, then you can understand what it is. It's a criminal justice system. It's not just, right? It's a criminal system that deals with the justice of criminality, not justice.
Yeah.
Because if you know criminality and you know, for example, I'm feeding you diets that are laden with sugar, laden with dyes, laden with pesticides, laden with all kind of disgusting things that are going to change your mental and neurological makeup. And they know these things because they've done studies to show that when they reduce or remove certain things from the diet, the prisoners calm down.
Yep.
And if they know this, why would they continuously deliberately do this? Because they understand that a man that can't think, can't reason, and he can't extricate himself from the circumstance that he's in.
Yeah.
So you keep them fighting. You keep them at each other's throats. You do little small things to keep them going back and forth between one another. And so then you create a culture inside of another culture, inside of another culture. See, prison systems are a subculture of a subculture of a subculture.
Yeah.
Right. And think about it. You know, when you have a petri dish, you're creating a culture. So they know that these walls would create this type of, cultivate this type of being, this diet. Right. Think about the walls constantly gray. Right. The everything in there is designed to literally reduce your humanity to nothing. So in essence, right, understanding that you're dealing with a criminal who's applying his justice system to you, which is criminal in and of itself, that shows you that bar none, we're still underneath the Indo-European rule. Women just have rights within the last 100 years. Women's suffrage is only 100 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, man.
It's evident, right? I mean, the United States of America, right? Who's a Sag ascendant, by the way, right?
Yeah.
United States of America, right, produces more military. It spends more on the military than any other nation on this planet. Yeah. Combined, actually. You can add them all up, and it still doesn't even come up to close to what the United States spends a year militarily speaking. Right. So again, right, taking into consideration these things, right, this all shows that that what we're dealing with is a spillover. It's an Aryan mess, right? And the problem is not really. It's a symptom, right? The problem is you and I haven't woken up to the reality of who we are. And once that happens, then things fall into place fairly quickly, because you don't rule for 4,000 years and then not have the ability to be successful at some other point in time. Right?
Yeah.
There's no culture known on Earth that has ruled that long.
Mm-mm.
Not one. Not even China. May be close, because they have a dynastic system, but their dynastic system didn't go nearly as far as Kim.
No. I mean, even if you were to combine Rome and take it all the way today, it still doesn't add up to 4,000 years.
We still got 2,000 more years to go, right? Because we ruled that long.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you know, it just shows that when you do have power, right? You have knowledge of self. You have command over your everyday living, right? And you expand that to gain command over your community, and then gain command over your city, and then expand from there. That's how they all start. All these things start this way, right? So if you just do your neighborhood, you do your home, right, and change little small things. Yes, we are still in the Aryan Indo-European paradigm, but changing it from slowly from within, that's just like a Trojan horse, right?
Yeah.
Change little small things, and then next thing you know, the external changes disappears. In fact, that's how a lot of transsexuals change their opinion. It's not the pill; it's their thought that changes the external. Right? These things are known, right? You can change your physiology based on your thinking.
Yeah.
So how have we changed our physiology based on the Aryan way of thinking? Right?
Yeah.
How many divorces have happened because of an Aryan disposition or an Aryan mindset or Indo-European mindset? Divorce, diet, right? Your religion, right? Your religion, right, is Indo-European. Anything that subjugates the woman is Indo-European. In the Bible, she is a doormat. She is. In fact, in the beginning of the book, she's blamed for the whole thing. Right? Cursed is her heel. Right?
I think we brought this up last time. You know, back to kind of like the origins of how they came up in the world. You know, if we actually this was actually the polygamous episode,
right?
Where I mentioned it, but you know, you're in a cold, frigid, you know, environment. You're following herds and stuff like that. You know, that I'm not saying I agree, not at all, but I could see where their disposition towards women develops from if your whole mindset is based on survival.
Yeah.
And you know, you know what I mean, that it doesn't bring the value versus contrast with us. You know, women are the ones who, you know, put in the foundation for agriculture to let us sit down and be able to feed thousands of people and build civilizations, and you know, to have that luxury to be able to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, the woman is the basis of mathematics. She is the basis of mathematics. See, the woman understands cycles much better than men do. She internally knows that every single time this thing goes around, I'm going to have something happen. You might as well start counting. Right? Trying to figure this thing out. And so they will follow, right, their own internal changes with the external changes that would happen and begin to measure, right, and realize that there is something called math, right, and begin to understand that there is a process, a time, a repetition, right, a up and down, a ebb and flow, and this is where the spiritual systems of the African comes from. Whereas the European is fear, right? So thou shalt not.
Well, I mean, he tells you, you know, my God is jealous. He tells you straight up what you know, what rules their mind.
Straight up. No gray area there, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, this just goes to really highlight, right, and show, right, the depth of how that particular age has transformed the earth, not only from one era, but is still is in play in a whole nother era. And the craziest thing is disorganized, right? It's disorganized, but at the same time, there is a hidden organization behind it. Strangely enough, how do certain people stay in power and how certain people not come in power? Because someone's using something. See, it's called leveling the playing field, right? If we don't level the playing field, there's no sense of talking about any type of rights. You can talk about rights all you want. You could talk about human rights. You could talk about civil rights. You could talk about gay rights. You could talk about any right you want. Doesn't change anything. You're underneath a paradigm. You don't change those things unless you change in groups and you create a snowball like effect, which then they can't stop. That's the secret of how you shift the baton to the hands. You have to know, number one, there's a shift, there's a race. We are in a race. We are, as a people, here to do something for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can do something for someone else. But we are here to do something for ourselves. First, we're here to get over our small, petty differences. That's what the Aryan age woke up a lot of our issues. See, it's just a symptom.
Yeah.
But you have deeper issues that you have to resolve as a people. And these small Yoruba little small Yoruba Akan type of skirmishes, or I mean, even in Kemet, think about in Kemet. It's just like in Kemet when you had the Nubians and you had the Cometians. They were the same people. I don't know how European scholars tricked people into believing that the Cometians weren't the same stock as the Nubians, and they even put it on the wall that we're the same stock. But it's just like the Germans and the French. They're both white. They both come from Europe. They're both neighbors, but they ain't the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they share some similarities. It's the same way back then. And it's the same way in the Akan have many similarities to the Yoruba in their intrinsic belief system, right? It's still one. It all comes out of Kemet anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, understanding that we need to get over our small differences. Europeans get over small differences and they make big differences among other people in small differences. They know how to use this because they know they've learned it with themselves. Remember, I just read to you that they've been practicing this for a long time. They understand, right? In fact, the word gang, G-A-N-G, comes from the word Gaina. Gaina, right, is literally what they would call their tribes. So their tribes were called gangs. It's in, straight up. Yeah. It was like, whoa, right? Ganesha,
Mm-hmm.
is to push through, right? That's what a gang does, right? So, what I mean? Like, it's real deep when you start studying the origins and etymology of words, right? To understand where these things come from. Yeah, gangs comes out of an Indo-European thing. Because it's a tribalistic thing. That's, again, one of our problems. They just exacerbate the problem. They highlight the problem. Oh, these guys don't like these guys because they do this and this. Well, just push that agenda a little bit and let it take root, and you don't have to do much else. As I tell Crips and Bloods, there's one color you're missing. The red and blues at each other, but there's something there that's instigating the two. And it's on your flag, right? Red, white, and blue.
Mm-hmm.
Same things with folks and disciples. Same thing, right?
Yep.
Keep us separated. Keep us divided. They know that. They have that ability. So studying your enemy, knowing where your enemy comes from, knowing how long your enemy's been on the scene, knowing his traits. Remember, going back and studying culture, knowing those 7 basic traits that he displays. 6 he basically displays. Right? See if you find it in little things that you have around you. See if you see it in movies. See if you see it on TV. Right? Because then you begin to understand that there's a seed inside of you that literally is causing us to do these kind of silly things called Crips and Bloods, vice lords and folks and all and disciples and all that. That's all European mindset. Mm-hmm. Right. So, I leave it at that. I think we really touched on the Age of Aries extremely well, right? We've given some pretty good credence and get some good information for people to stand on. What do you think, my brother?
Yeah, I think this is definitely gonna be one of them classics indeed. Yeah, man, because it's relevant. I mean, it's, sometimes you can get heady with astrology and get bogged down in this yoga and this and that, but when you come down to when you look at it, in the context of actual life, then it really starts to
Hit home.
come alive to you.
Yeah, it hits home. Yeah. Yeah. So
Indeed.
So go ahead.
So that begs the question, though, right? So, that we're gonna hit another one of those marks in the next, few centuries or whatnot. So, what do you think that looks like for the darker people on this planet?
Well, remember I said whoever has the baton, right, holds the key to that era.
Yeah.
Who do you think holds the baton now?
Well, that baton is kind of shaky right now.
I'll tell you who holds it. Right? Asia holds it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Asia's the next runner-up, right? Then us. That's how it works. And strangely enough, Nostradamus, and I'm not saying Nostradamus is the one to listen to because he got a lot of flaws, but it's strange that he says that the black man will ascend back to his throne around 4000 BC. I mean 4000 AD, excuse me. 4000 AD. Now, we're 2000 right now. Isn't it strange that's another 2000 years? And we'll be going from the age of into Aquarius back into the age of Capricorn. And those two ages are ruled by Saturn. And Saturn is the black man.
Yeah.
Right. The father time, the oldest of the old, right? The ancient of days is us, right? That's Saturn. He's the oldest in the zodiac. He represents elderhood, right? That's us. Right, you get so old you forget sometimes. So you got to have an Aryan age to wake you up. Right. You have to have a Piscean age to put you to sleep, and then you have to have an Aquarian age to wake you back up again. Right. See, the blunt object was in the Aryan age. The knockout point when you're knocked out is now, right? And the wake up is, oh man, what a hangover! Right. That's
yeah.
And the hangover, once you're good, then the age of Capricorn is in, and the black man is in power, right? We think it's a long time. It's really a bleep on the radar screen.
Nah, yeah. I mean, you just think about, 400 years. I mean, 400 some years.
Well, 400 years from now, we won't be passing the baton, but we'll be thinking about a baton. Right. We'll be thinking, hey, you know what? Maybe we need to consolidate our efforts. Maybe we need to kind of start talking, because remember, China's already in Asia. I mean, China's already in Africa. Right.
Yeah.
So they're the next foothold. They're the ones that can pass on the baton. The Indo-Europeans wane is here. He's waning. Right. When you wane, you flail. Right. He's flailing right now. Right? That's all of this mess that we got. He's flailing. Right. But in the flailing, he's gonna flail and hit you and me and everybody else. Right? Yeah,
it's like a dog or something like that that's on his last leg.
Yeah, man.
It's vicious. It's
vicious. Gonna get you. It gets vicious, man. That's what it is. So all these police shootings, they traded the sheets in for the badges. Well, we know that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they had an incident in North Carolina. And that brother, man, the brother that's the chief in North Carolina looks like one of the brothers in ATL that runs one of the mosques out there. I mean, they look like twins. But that brother exposed, right, them so-called kiking, right, are doing their little Indo-European self-aggrandizement thing, talking about they can't wait for a race war. And these are veterans on the force, y'all.
Yeah.
I mean, I have stories upon stories upon stories, right, to tell you how intricately infiltrated the police department is by white supremacy.
Well, I mean, it's public knowledge. The FBI, I mean, it's out there.
Yeah,
it's out there. It ain't no
figure, right? But that is the Aryan age. Not in it is expanded view, because we could be here for 2 or 3 hours talking about just the points and the switching off and ons between the different skirmishes between them and other different peoples around the world. I mean, it's not just those. There's others, right? But those are the major ones because those are the areas where they could get out and start, traveling and doing things. But this thing has spilled over. I mean, we're talking about all the way to Columbus. We're talking about the African transatlantic slave trade. We're talking about even the sense of the Islamic slave trade, right? I mean, all of this is Indo-European. Islam is Indo-European. People say, no, it comes from the Middle East. The zone of confluence is the area where the Arab, literally, the white meets the black. That's why you have that mixture, that color in that zone. Right? So they picked up and piggybacked the Aryan, the Indo-European way, right? Because remember, Iranian is not far from the Caucasus Mountains. It's the zone of confluence.
Yeah.
So understanding that, yes, you're Islam, when you do your 5 times a day prayer, right? When you, right, wash your hands and all that's Indo-European. All of it.
Well, I mean, the culture it came out of, they totally removed those elements, like, a lot, and all those teachers are gone.
You remember that movie The Brothers? Remember that movie The Brothers with the 4 brothers?
Never saw it. I know what movie you're talking about, but I never watched it.
In the movie, right, one of the brothers goes to see his mom. I think it's Bill Bellamy. And he goes to see his mom, and he goes, she said, you've been dealing with them such and such women. And he like, oh, mama. He said, well, what about Asian women? She said, well, they ain't nothing but Caucasian with an egg roll. I was like, oh, wow. And then he said, she said, what about Mexican? She said, oh, that ain't nothing but one with a taco. I said, wow. But it is true. I mean, there's a demarcation between, and it's known, right? It's just not stated, that there is that which comes through our stock and has us in them, and then the vice versa, right? Mm-hmm. And so we still have this zone of confluence throughout the world, this intermixture throughout the world. That's why we have these different problems amongst our own people, right? Because of all these kind of crazy intermixing processes that they've ensued.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, you can find this repetitiously because this is the modus operandi that he's on. It's everywhere. You just have to really stop and think about even the diet. Like, yeah, we ate meat, folks. Black folk ate meat, so I'm not sitting up here acting like we're vegetarian and all that. But the way we did it is different, right? The way we do it is different. The treatment of the animal is different, right? Mm-hmm. The Maasai love their cows, right? But they also do use them for meat, and they do eat them. But they treat them with honor and respect. Remember, I said one of the cultural traits is the disrespect of nature, right? If you've ever seen a chicken farm, you'll know, right? That's horrible.
Yeah.
Right. So again, just going deep enough because we don't see it, right? Nah, this ain't white. Nah, man, this is all European for the most part, right? There's some sprinkling African, the African Asili here and there, right? But not much. Even in Africa, the African Asili is being killed by the Indo-European through colonization, through economic plundering, right? Mm-hmm. He's pervasively infectious, right? So I'll leave it at that because I will, man, this on the Indo-European and the Age of Aries, right? Man, I'd be on my soapbox on that, right? But nonetheless, right, folks, you can clearly see, right, this is what has transpired, right? And this is what we can go back and review, historically speaking, and understand and learn lessons from our ancestors and apply them to today.
Indeed. So with that being said, this episode was brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group and Caliprucia Astrology and our good people at Patreon. Like I said at the beginning, our patrons will, get linked into, a new kind of format we're playing around with, so they'll get the video version of this podcast. And we want you to give your feedback, absolutely. And we're going to be tweaking that so you get to see it first. Indeed. And don't forget to follow us on Cosmic Convos. Cosmic Convo on Instagram at COSMICCONVO on Instagram, and that's where you can stay in tune with what's new going on, and that's also where the link tree for all our different websites and all the different streaming platforms that we're on as well. And we got some other announcements that will be coming up too, just waiting on the go ahead, but we're going to be on some other platforms as well coming soon. Indeed. Brother White, you got anything you want to say before we get out of here?
No, just stay tuned. Continue to spread it, folks. We appreciate you getting the word out there. We really do, because it's really growing. I'm getting a lot more feedback this year, this season. So we do appreciate the participation. We appreciate the listening. We appreciate the patrons. It's a joy and a pleasure to be able to bring this knowledge to the people. So by all means, keep us going.
Indeed. So, that being said, we'll be back here. Thank you for tuning in to this episode. We'll be back next week with another banger for you. And everybody be safe out there. And we're out. Peace.
Peace.
Boom.